Like pixels on a screen, these are the games of our lives.
Coming to you live from the luxurious, brand spanking new Frack Truck Studios in beautiful Southern Maryland, it's the games of our lives. And joining me this week while Mike is still in Tejas, a returning guest, Patrick.
Hello.
Welcome back, Patrick.
Is it me you're looking for?
Well, it is now. So, Patrick, what have you been playing lately?
So I've been in a bunch of situations lately where I've had long stretches of time where at any moment I might need to do something that will require my full attention. And like sometimes those gaps end up being 45 minutes long and I'm out somewhere or whatever. I have an iPad. So I've actually been playing a lot of stuff on my iPad.
Okay.
The top two most being Pinball Arcade, which, you know, if people aren't aware, they've done a really, really nice job of really capturing classic arcade machines. And when I say classic, I mean, you know, not like 50s all the way through, you know, modern era. But I guess I should say popular arcade machines.
Yes.
And they have, you know, my all-time favorite one, which is called Bride of Pinbot. And I mean, pinball, I guess, you know, like there's such a weird sibling sort of situation with video games and pinball. It's like some people who are into video games, you know, love pinball. It's part of the whole arcade experience. And some people are like, what is that thing? You know, where's the controller? Like, it's a different foreign thing to them.
Right.
But you know, some of the pinball machines they have are fantastic. And the sounds have a nostalgia quality for me that is, you know, like anybody approximately my age, plus or minus about 4 years, you know, we'll know those sounds like the Killer Instinct Ultra Combo, you know, ringing through an arcade, or Colossus's special move in the X-Men stand-up arcade. Like those are just sounds, or even that fucking Daytona USA music.
Cruisin' USA.
No, Daytona.
Oh, we never had a Daytona. We always had Cruisin' USA.
I loved Cruisin' USA. Daytona USA was shit, and that song was just, there was something about, they've probably done science on this, about how to make sure a sound carries through a crowded arcade full of bleeps and bloops, where there's one machine where it's not like it's blaringly loud, it's just at some frequency that nothing else is at, and so it's all you can hear. Anyway, point being, you know, even the fact that they've got the sounds done perfectly just triggers this nice nostalgic urge for me. And in a way, it's been kind of cool because I've learned a lot. Like at its root, pinball is like, okay, don't let the ball fall down. But then once you get past that basic skill level, you can't do much if all you're doing is just keeping the ball from, like, you have to learn each game's trick shots, and you have to learn how to sequence those trick shots in order, like strategically, in order to actually unlock the different, you know, events in the game. And that's how you actually get a big score. It's not just a matter of keeping it going for a long time.
Right, and that seems to be like the thing that separates people who actually enjoy pinball and people who are just looking for something to do.
Right, and I was one at one time, and now that it doesn't actually cost me, you know, 50 cents every time, you know, I've become a bit more of a connoisseur, and I finally joined the Billionaire Club on Bride of Pinbot, which is, you know, a silly boast, but it was like, the little scrolling screen talks about that, and you can figure out, just even if you suck at the game, you can look at the playfield and average scores and sort of figure out how hard it is to do that. You basically have to, you know, hit a big jackpot or hit this one particular spinner wheel that can potentially give you a billion points.
And these Pinball Arcade guys, they basically take the old machines. I think they do they do it in seasons, right? Where they have a Kickstarter for every new season, and then they take that money and basically rip the ROMs out of the machines and then try to replicate them as best they can. So it's got all the sounds and all that stuff in it.
Oh, beyond that, they actually have fixed some calculation bugs. They scan the actual artwork in and use it as textures on the 3D models they build of the playfield. So, I mean, there are, you know, some of the games they have, some of my favorites, in fact, have, you know, complex, like, mechanized portions of the playfield. It's not just like that Windows 95 pinball game. And and they've gone through, and it's funny because like there are parts of Bride of Pinbot where they actually like hide all the credits for the game, and like that's in this virtual version. They have taken that piece of paper out of a legit, one of those arcade machines. They've scanned it and they've precisely measured the contours of the thing it was wrapped on. They've built a 3D version of that, and then they've used that scan as a texture, so it looks like spot on, like it did, if you had a real one. Which I know somebody's built an Oculus sort of client for their tables, which I'm super, super interested in, because that's the last thing that's missing, right? It's the ability to turn my head freely.
Yeah, right. And that it seems like a great thing for people who are into pinball, as you are, and it seems perfect for you.
Yeah, and it's so great because I mean, pinball is the kind of game where, generally speaking, every now and then there's one where I'm really kicking ass, but generally speaking, if somebody interrupts me and I have to shut it off, I mean, it has a mechanism where you can basically like kill the app or shut off the device, and when you come back, it does like a countdown. That's basically like, okay, get ready, here you're about to go back into the game. But there's still a high likelihood that just by virtue of someone calling your name and you looking away from the screen for half a second, like you've lost that ball, and that can have massive consequences depending on the game.
Yes, but thankfully you don't have money on the line.
I don't have money on the line, and I just don't care that much. Like every now and then, like I said, I got a real humdinger of a game going, but generally speaking, it's I just don't care that much. I'm not that invested in any particular game, and so it's a nice pickup. I guess the other thing I've been playing on my iPad, sort of in a similar fashion, is so I think on the last time I was on the show, we talked about I'm perennially 3 years behind the curve on this stuff.
Right.
So I did finally pick up Monument Valley. And that is a fantastic game with a few qualifiers.
I've got it on my phone. I've never booted it up.
Oh man, I highly recommend it. It's not a difficult game, and the story is kind of garbage, but it's a really, really fun, puzzler, and every aspect of it is just fine tuned to be incredibly satisfying. It's basically, for those who don't know, it's basically a Portal, an isometric perspective. Portal meets MC Escher geometry. So where Portal took physics and said, yeah, I'm not so sure about that. This game sort of takes physical geometry as we understand it, and much like MC Escher, sort of turns it on its head and goes, well, don't get too comfortable that that's a wall, because actually now it's the floor.
Okay.
The whole thing is basically just getting a character to an end goal by moving the environment around them and telling them to move to certain segments as you do so. But little parts of it are just like I said, every part of it is just really, really like it has a craftsmanship to it, and it has just like there's a part where you're moving a block from one part of the screen to another that essentially acts as like a movable bridge, right? But as you're doing that, each little bit that you move the bridge, it's playing notes on a harp in perfect sync with how you're moving it. And so you move it back and forth. It's like you're playing a harp, and they've done it in such a way that just everything seems just very, alive and magical and sort of considered. Like every single time that you touch the screen, they've spent a lot of time figuring out how can we make this feel solid and really, really like pleasurable. I don't know how the better way to describe it.
Right. And that's great. And especially in a marketplace that is chock full of cash-ins and free-to-play bullshit.
Yeah. I mean, you take Flappy Bird versus this. I mean, this is, this is like the incredibly well-considered, perfectly crafted version of some, this is the, I don't know, the craft beer that's gone through 200 years of revision. And then, Flappy Bird is like, here's a Bud Light, man.
Right.
And the interesting thing about the game, though, is it has made me realize absolutely that Valve could make money hand over fist if they did an isometric, mobile Portal game, because the story in Portal is so much better than Monument Valley, and the mechanics are approximately as interesting. I actually, before Portal 2 came out, I played a very, very good Flash 2D, like side-scrolling Portal puzzle game. that just used the exact same mechanics. It was just in 2D space, and they'd come up with a bunch of interesting puzzles and put together in Flash. But it was a fantastic game. Parts of it were actually brutally hard. But I'm just, Monument Valley really makes me sort of go, if this had the Portal story and GLaDOS teasing me throughout this and used the mechanics of launching portals instead of like rearranging the board so that I can walk on the wall over here, like, it would just be a huge, huge hit.
Right. It reminds me of like the transition scenes in Portal 2, where it's this isometric perspective of the iconography,
right,
just explaining what's going on, basically.
All of the Portal 2 marketing had that isometric instruction manual kind of feel to it. They could basically, they've already got a bunch of the assets created. It'd just be a matter of designing puzzles and figuring out some way to squeeze it into their narrative. But yeah, I would buy that in a heartbeat.
Yeah, I'll have to boot that up sometime.
Yeah, well, if you can manage to, swipe to a screen and tap an icon, I know it's a lot of effort for you.
I don't know. I've got the arthritis. These fingers, they don't work too good.
Knuckleitis.
Yeah. So I've been playing a bunch. I think it was you when last you were on, we talked about Monster Hunter. Does that sound correct?
It does.
Yeah. So I've been playing a bunch of a Monster Hunter-like game on the Vita called Freedom Wars, and it's a Japanese game.
You don't say.
Where it's quite, well, we'll get there. It's quite Japanese. Where it's essentially a game about slavery and depression.
Alrighty.
So those are the central tenets and themes of the game.
But like the army is made up of bunnies or something?
No, it's a scarcity economy society where there are so few resources and so many people competing for them that every life has to contribute in some way. And if you don't have the skills to contribute in a sort of intelligence-based or skill-based way, you are demoted to a class of people called sinners, labeled criminals, a crime, the crime of essentially being useless to your society, which carries a penalty of 1 million years.
That's a lot of years.
Yeah. So sinners work off this sentence by going out and doing missions, hunting for resources, taking out other societies, people, rescuing citizens, which are the upper class people.
If they can do that, aren't they demonstrating some usefulness, though?
Yes, that is what they're good for. But obviously, you can't let them do one mission and be free. It actually does a pretty good job of reinforcing the systematic oppression of these people. You can never really earn your freedom because there's so many traps in the system. And the game mechanics do a very good job of reinforcing that, because if you take 5 steps in your cell, you get slapped with a penalty of 20 years because you're wasting energy. If you talk to somebody who you're not supposed to talk to, you're wasting their time and you get slapped with a 100-year fine. And all that sort of thing.
Wow.
Yeah. So it mechanically, it does a very good job of sort of reinforcing that systemic oppression that you're feeling. And, the themes are very interesting. The aesthetics are pretty nice, but I don't know. The gameplay is not so great.
I was going to say, how do you progress if it's doing such a great job of exposing that indentured servitude side of the world? Seems like you would check out of that optional experience pretty quickly.
Well, so they actually have mechanics in place. So as you do missions, you earn both years off your sentence and things called entitlement points. And you can use those entitlement points to buy essentially relief from the penalties, which is very good because you quickly realize you quickly get tired of walking everywhere and not being able to run for more than 3 seconds. And not being able to quick travel. So you quickly earn your way out of these out of these marginal penalties, essentially. And then can start spending your entitlements on getting better upgrades and getting better gear and keeping more resources when you go out and do missions. But yeah, so the central gameplay loop is you get a mission, you go out, you either kill a bunch of enemies, you defeat big monster-like things called abductors, or you rescue citizens, which is the useful people in society, essentially the upper class who really don't know how to defend themselves, so they get abducted by these other societies, and you have to go out and rescue them.
Okay.
So yeah,
do you ever progress to the level of citizen, or?
I don't know yet. I don't think so. I think you just sort of get to the point where you're basically really high up on the center food chain, but I've got a lot left to go. It's an action, the core gameplay. It's an action game. It's a lot like Monster Hunter, but it's a first generation Monster Hunter. There's not a lot of options. There's not a lot of different move sets. There's not a lot of enemy variety. So I don't know that I can recommend it necessarily on those grounds. And I mean, there are a lot of other problems. I mean, the game is barely localized. All of the dialogue is in Japanese. Not all of the voiceover is even subtitled. There are background announcements and stuff that are never subtitled, so you have no idea what they're saying. And even for the translation, like my rudimentary understanding of Japanese is telling me that they're taking some liberties with the translation, and it's not necessarily converting very well.
So it sounds like if you have too much freedom in your life and your escapism needs a little bit of eternal slavery, this is a good fit.
Yeah, I think it was kind of eye-opening how deep they get into modeling sort of that systemic oppression, but I don't know that it was done necessarily on purpose, because the Japanese game developers often seem sort of tone deaf to these sorts of things. So I don't know if it was intentional or completely by accident that they sort of hit upon this simulation. But
well,
I don't know. It's inoffensive enough that I'm still playing it. But there is a lot wrong with it, and I can't necessarily recommend it unless you already happen to have a Vita and are looking for an actiony game to play.
I mean, similar to that, like some of the most educational material on what's really, really bad about sexism is a bunch of sexists getting together and going, it would be awesome, and creating like the dream like that inadvertently becomes the poster child for everything that and educates people about why that stuff is terrible. So it sounds like, it could be an absolute accident here.
Right. They're coming out on the other side, essentially.
But unintentionally.
But yeah, right. It's kind of fun, but like the in-between mission stuff, it's pretty rough. They shackle you to these very annoying characters. It's kind of rough. But I mean, it's inoffensive enough that I'm still playing it. It's a little more inscrutable than Monster Hunter. I think with some more iterations on their formula, they could probably make a pretty darn good Monster Hunter clone. And it's pretty good for like a first generation Monster Hunter clone, but the regular old Monster Hunter is still doing me just fine. Speaking thereof, I have officially dropped over 150 hours into Monster Hunter 4 and have basically cleared all of the single player content, which is just sort of the tip of the iceberg, because the best stuff is well, I wouldn't say best. The more advanced stuff and the better equipment is all in the multiplayer. So, Patrick, what do you got on the horizon? What are you looking forward to?
Oh man, well, the Lego Dimensions people have me completely in their power. I mean, it's really bad. If Amazon had something where I could basically just like plunk down a credit card and say, the moment any part of this game comes out, I want it at my door, I would be there.
There you go.
So they've basically, for anybody who doesn't know, they basically combined the Lego games, which are kind of a puzzle exploration collection game, with the Toys to Life exploration type stuff of, you know, Skylanders or Disney Infinity. But it really, I mean, obviously any promo is designed to convince you to buy the product, but having experimented at my friends with Skylanders, and I have Disney Infinity set, it really seems like they have nailed every frustrating part of those things and only kept the good stuff. And then combined it with a game mechanic and sort of almost like platform that has brought me, you know, like I love, like Meg and I have played through Lego Harry Potter, the Lego movie game, Lego Pirates of the Caribbean, Lego Batman, Lego, like we've just gone through this whole run.
Yeah, I've not really played any of the Lego games, but yes, that seems to be your jam.
Well, it's a good fit because, you know, Meg likes to play games. It's a good, you know, nice way where I can actually get some gaming time in while still having like time with her. But you know, it doesn't like none of that requires you know, pinpoint sniper rifle aim or with a controller, which I'm not even that, like I'm a mouse and keyboard guy. So and she's not like, even she loves the side scrolling Mario games, but even the 3D Mario games, like the trying to precisely make a jump in 3D space just is not in her wheelhouse. And so those games don't require much of that sort of stuff. I mean, they're somewhat designed to be kids games, although if you're trying to 100% them, some of the puzzles and some of the things you have to figure out how to do are, you know, really like challenging even for us. So I think, you know, it's easy to approach game. They're easy to approach games, but you can, you know, really sink a lot of time into them, and they still can be difficult if you're trying to 100% collect everything and do every possible thing.
Right. And Lego Dimensions seems to be, from what I know of you, hitting all of your franchises that you seem to enjoy. So.
It's got some that I don't really care about, but just the way that they've done it where, you know, everything works with everything, and they've done cool stuff where, like, the position that you put the little toy on the thing actually has gameplay changes. And this part, I'm not even sure how they do, but you can rebuild, like, they are Lego sets. It's not just a little plastic figure. Right. It's a Lego set, and you can take it apart and rebuild it. And that also has an effect in game, and stuff like that just scratches that sort of childlike, I love technology. I love, you know, stuff like that. It scratches this itch of like, that's so freaking cool. Plus it, you know, it happens to be built on a gaming, you know, company and franchise and platform of, here's how we do our games that I've had a lot of fun with. So like, if you add that level of, you know, now I can switch out, instead of playing all the way through Pirates of the Caribbean with just Pirates of the Caribbean characters, you know, I can bring Batman into that. Like, hell yeah.
There you go. Yeah, no, that sounds pretty cool. I don't know that I'm necessarily into that, but they seem to be doing a pretty darn good job of taking that Toys to Life genre and taking it to the next level.
Yeah, and I mean they've definitely, like I said, they've just considered every part of it. So, you know, the fact that long after you're done with this game, it's still just Lego sets, and I'm happy. You know, like, I will say the Disney Infinity figures are pretty neat to put on a shelf and look at, but, you know, it's not as cool as actually having these little like Lego kits.
Right, and you can mix and match them as you please.
That's
I
guess
cool.
There's one other thing I'm really looking forward to. So also sort of in the Patrick's, like, you know, childhood joy division is Transformers Devastation. Like,
yeah, that's announced during.
Yeah,
E3,
it's coming out, I think, in late September or early October, I think. I'm not a Bayonetta guy, so I don't know Platinum games. I have no knowledge of them aside from people just, you know, speak of them in these breathless terms of, you know, the most amazing. Okay, I guess I thought Bayonetta was like just a totally ridiculous concept that I could not understand for half a second what was going on. But right. You know, if you look at the trailers and stuff for that game, like, it's basically like you take like 5-year-old Patrick smashing a couple of Transformers toys together, and you draw like a little cartoon thought bubble above his head. That's basically the trailer. Is what's happening. Like that. Okay. My imagination as I was playing with those toys and doing the voices to myself and stuff. That's basically the game that they have put together. I mean, it's just amazing.
Yeah, no, that sounds really cool, and they do make very good action games. But I mean, they sort of make the same game every time with a different skin. But I mean, if you're not super into Platinum already, it'll be new to you.
know, if they're a one-trick pony, then it'll be my first time seeing the trick. So
Right, and it's the original like first gen art
right,
style,
and they've got
right?
most of the original voice cast. A lot of those guys are dead, but where they could, they got the original voice cast. So yeah, I mean, I think it's one of those games where I expect to get very frustrated at it because I'm not good at. It's ultimately a fighting game, and I'm there. I have a taper off point in any fighting game where like I'm not going to learn the 27 move combo. It's just not going to happen. And so I expect to hit that there, but I think I'll have a lot of fun with just what they've put together in terms of the art style and the voice direction and stuff.
Yeah, cool. Sounds great. I've been, now that I've got, my desk set up and I'm back using my proper keyboards, mouse, and monitor, I'm looking to dip back into Heroes of the Storm, Blizzard's MOBA, now that it's fully released or been fully out for a couple months. Have you ever looked into that? I played a couple
rounds when they first, I guess when they went into open beta, so they'd gotten out of close. Actually, maybe it was even closed beta. I don't know, but it was a while ago, and it seemed great. I was playing in I think what was a bot match, and which is I don't know if that made it to the final release. I sincerely hope so, because games like that and Battlefield 1942, like the appeal for me was, I want 3 people that I know very well on my team, and I want the entire rest of the thing to be CPU. I don't want to deal with, the unwashed masses, if you will. And when I played, it was like, this seems really cool. I could see myself getting super into this if I could play with like one or two other people that I know. But right now, it just felt a little sterile because I was just playing against bots.
Right, and that not a lot of the formula has changed. I think. And I've played a little bit of Dota 2. I wouldn't call myself a MOBA expert, but I think it is certainly the MOBA for people who don't really play MOBAs. And I think they do a very good job of simplifying or straight up removing a lot of things that make MOBAs hard to sort of get a handle on. And I think that Blizzard does a very good job of sort of mixing up the genre a little bit. So it differs from a traditional MOBA in that each map sort of has objectives that are not the traditional MOBA objectives associated with it. And completing those objectives gives you a big sort of boost to doing the normal, take down towers, take down bases, stuff. So it's good in that there's not a lot of like, it's easy to learn but kind of difficult to master in the way that the mechanics work. And I've been, I booted it up a little bit today and been doing some bot matches. I would suggest and even if you are a MOBA person, I would suggest doing a bunch of bot matches just so you get a handle for all of the different maps objectives, so you're not going into real matches and sort of not able to help out your team as much. But there's a lot of different single or solo play options. You can play against all bots. You can go up against with other people against bots. Or you can, go against other people. And they do the League of Legends things where they have a rotating slate of free heroes, and then you can buy heroes for either money or in-game currency, which you earn just playing the game. So I think they do a pretty good job of it. There was some worries that the monetization would kind of be a little rough back during the beta, but I think they've sort of smoothed that out. There's a bunch of low-tier heroes that you can get that you can purchase pretty much almost right away after doing the training and doing, a couple matches.
That was one of the things that was interesting to me, is part of what broke through for me on that. I agree with you that Blizzard can, sand down all the parts of a MOBA that are annoying to me. And I think they did a good job of that. But, part of it was also just the appeal for me of like, I don't think there's any company whose stable of characters I've spent more time with
Right.
gaming than Blizzard. And so, the whole idea of like, I don't know, Tychus versus Diablo, in the middle of the battlefield, like, oh, that sounds awesome. I really like that idea. And so they kind of had me there, but that did absolutely in the beta. I was like, oh, this is where they're gonna Hearthstone me good, where they're to get the things that I think are gonna be cool. I'm gonna have to shell out crazy money.
Right. So like obviously, heroes that are a little more complicated or a little harder to play are going to cost more. But I mean, you can get you can earn the gold to get the basic heroes pretty easily. And I mean, the prices are not unreasonable for the characters themselves. And it's definitely got all of that Blizzard polish in so even insofar as repeatedly clicking on your hero gets you all of their quirky dialogue.
I always love that. Going back to like Warcraft.
Yeah,
1, I think.
Yeah, that's in there for all the heroes, and they've got a ridiculous slate of heroes from all of their games. Like there's a character, just siege tank. It's a siege tank from StarCraft 2.
That's
it's
awesome.
just a siege tank.
I would love it if they did some stuff like obscure characters for like, because when you get into that sort of, all right, we really got to plumb the depths of our character roster to keep this interesting. I would love it if they did, like, I can't remember if you played Alliance or Horde in
Yeah, I played both, but I mostly played Alliance.
But the like one of the longest running jokes in the world on the Horde side was the Tauren guy that hangs out in the inn in Orgrimmar. There's a mission where you have to kill him, and it's like, it's one of those things like everybody complains because somebody's just killed him, and now you're trying to do the quest, and you gotta wait for him to respawn or whatever. Like I would like laugh my ass off if they made a super like roided up version of that guy as one of the heroes in that game. So you could just, this guy that is like the butt of a million jokes in WoW, they've made like a hero in Heroes of the Storm. That would be, that's the kind of thing that makes me laugh my ass off.
Yeah, well, there's, there aren't necessarily any sacred cows in Heroes of the Storm. Like, for instance, the level 70 Elite Tauren Chieftain is a hero. Yeah, as I said, the Lost Vikings are a hero. They have a pretty good handle on what they're doing with it, and they're still adding characters. Obviously, I think they just added the monk from Diablo 3, so they've still got plenty more to go. So yeah, I'm gonna dip back into it, and I have a couple friends who play. One who works at Blizzard, so I try to play with them a little bit. Yeah, no news really that I thought was worth looking into this week. So I think that's going to do it for us. Thank you for joining me, Patrick. Where can people find you on the Intertrons?
I'm on Twitter at POTUS.
Okay.
I've been doing a lot of political sort of talk lately, but it's not.
Thanks, Obama.
You're welcome.
Yeah. So follow at POTUS for hot Wu-Tang hits and sick burns on the conservative Christians. Yeah, I think that's going to do it for us this week. You can find me on the Intertrons at FracTruck. You can follow the show feed at FracTruck_games. If you enjoyed the show, do us a favor, spread us around, retweet some stuff. It's the only way we reach a wider audience. Go ahead, subscribe to the channel if it please you. We thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.